Good morning, all. I am Omkar Bua. I am working as Assistant Professor in Department of Electrical Engineering, Kekewag Institute of Engineering, Education and Research, Nasik. On the behalf of Electrical Engineering Department, Kekewag Institute of Engineering, Education and Research, Nasik, I would like to welcome you all in this 3 days faculty development program on artificial intelligence and machine learning applications in power systems. I would like to brief today's agenda. So we are shortly starting our virtual inauguration for this faculty development program. After this, our today's 2 sessions are dedicated to the basics of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and in another session and we'll continue the session with some applications in power systems. I would also like to remind the schedule for this FDP for all 3 days sessions has been already mailed to you. So for all the sessions, I would like to request to join all of you sharp on time. Once again, welcome to all. We are privileged to have our institute principal, Honorable Dr. K. Nandurkar sir, with us. So, for the inauguration ceremony, I would like to request Honorable Nandurkar sir to please address our participants of this FTP.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, very good morning to all the participants of this faculty development program on artificial intelligence and machine learning applications in power system. I really compliment the electrical department for organizing this program at a very appropriate time. We are all in a lockdown period, and it has been extended further, and no activities are taking place at school or college level. In such a situation, it was necessary that we should organize some program for the faculty of various engineering colleges so that value addition will be done and the time will be utilized in a proper way. With this intention in mind, our Department of Electrical Engineering has organized this FDP, and I was told that many people are registered for the program. I'm sure they will be joining in a few minutes, and it will be a great program because we have speakers from different institutes, mainly from the IITs and NITs. They must have worked quite a lot in this particular area, and the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning is not new now. Everyone is talking about these terminologies. A lot of research is being carried out, and there are applications in almost every field. So I think the applications in power system will be very useful for all the participants, and that will really improve the efficiency of our power systems. And I'm sure that in the coming period, most of the things will be working based on the artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms, and they will be taking care of most of the things which will be happening in the sector of power system. That is applicable to all other fields also, and it is essential for all the teachers to know the algorithms as well as their applications so that they can transfer this knowledge to the students. And our students who will be graduating soon or maybe in the coming years, they must be aware of all these algorithms so that when they go into the field, they will be able to use these algorithms in a better way, and they can help the organization wherever they are working to apply these techniques and make it more effective. Because in the coming period, I see a great future for this artificial intelligence as well as machine learning, and it is our duty to equip our teachers and students with these particular topics. I'm sure in this FDP program, you will be getting a lot of inputs, lot of tips from the presenters. And my appeal to all of you will be, you can ask your questions, even though this is an online program, you can ask your question through the chat box, or you can raise your hand and ask the questions, and try to make it as interactive as possible. Try to do whatever activities they are suggesting to do at your level, and be in touch with the staff members so that the networking can continue. Because the objective of FDP is not only to impart knowledge, but to develop the network of like-minded people who are working in a particular area. And through that, we can gain more from sharing the knowledge, and maybe it can result in joint publications or even going towards patent or something like that. So that should be the objective. Talking about Kekevaag Institute, we started in 1984 with only 3 branches, but now we have total 8 branches, 4 PG programs, that is ME in engineering, and 2 programs, the PG program, that is MBA and MCA, and 4 of our departments, they are having PhD program. Electrical department is one of them, and so far 15 candidates have completed their PhD from our institute, and I think that is something important for an unaided college situated at Nasik. Our recent achievement was also 8 departments of this institute, they got accredited at one time. So we applied for 5 departments first. That visit was in August 19, and then we applied for 3 departments. That visit was in October 19. And in December, we got a result that all the 8 departments were accredited for a period of 3 years. I think this is something remarkable because there are very few colleges which are having 8 departments accredited at a time. And that shows the teaching learning process and the inputs which we are trying to give to the students. Apart from academic part, we also conduct so many other programs for the student as well as faculty. There are a lot of FDP programs going on, then webinars going on now in the lockdown period. And so many competitions and other things are organized for the students for their personality development. Our placement record is also very good. Last year, we could place more than 600 students. Around 150 companies, they visited the campus for placement. And we could provide almost those who are desirable to get the job, we could provide them the job. Many of our students are going for higher studies abroad. And there is quite a significant number in USA where we already had some alumni meet because the number of people in USA is quite high. They are doing very well in different countries. So that is the background of this institute, and the institute always tries to be on forefront, lead on different areas, and try to introduce the subjects which are in the future domain, that is the upcoming subjects, to the participants. So that is our tradition. Every time we are trying to do the programs in the new technological area and make the people aware about those things. So this program is also a part of that activity, and I'm sure all the participants will be benefited because of the activity which is carried out by our department. And something important, something good takeaway will be there at the end of this FDP. My best wishes to all the organizers and participants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. Sir has already briefed us about the institute. So I would like to take this opportunity to brief all of you about the Department of Electrical Engineering. The department was established in year 1996 and it's approved by AICTE New Delhi and affiliated to Savitribai Phule Pune University, which was formerly known as University of Pune. So it started with sanctioned intake of 40 for undergraduate, and later on the intake was increased to 60 in the academic year 1998-99. In the year 2003, the Department of Electrical Engineering was accredited by NBA New Delhi for 3 years. And to accelerate research and development activities, the department started some postgraduate programs in electrical engineering with control system specialization with 18 intake in 2007 and 8. And it's having a recognized PhD research center since 2008-9. So in year 2011, the department started a second shift UG program with increased strength of 60 students and started a new postgraduate program in an electrical power systems with a sanctioned intake of 18. So in 2011, the UG program of department was again accredited by NBA for 3 years. And as Principal Sir has already said, we are one of those proud 8 departments which were accredited recently by NBA for 3 years, starting from 2019. So this department is very proactive for organizing workshops, seminars, conferences, which are funded by various funding agencies, as well as there are some self-supported programs also in the areas of power quality, energy management and audit, condition monitoring of electrical equipment. Department is very rich in software, for example, MATLAB, ETAP, PSCAD, some software related with robotics. Some emerging trends in smart grid and software trainings are conducted every year. One of the mega events of department which is conducted every year and sponsored by IET UK, it's called as a Karmavir Expo, which is having a huge participation across the country. And Department of Electrical Engineering aims to establish a center of excellence in various areas of electrical engineering, such as power quality, energy management and audit, condition monitoring, and it aims to offer a value-added services to industries as well as societies. So with this, I would like to request my colleague, Professor Rupali Ahire, to introduce our expert of today's first session, Dr. Sushma Shelke.
Hello, good morning to one and all. Today we have with us Dr. Sushma Shelke. She is currently working as lead data analyst in ERIN International, Pune. She is also working as WILP faculty in BITS Pilani, Pune. She has completed her PhD from Walchand College of Engineering, Sangli in 2013. She has a total teaching experience of 20 years and industrial experience of 1 year. She has guided over 27 PG projects and 30 UG projects. She is a microchip certified trainer, fellow IETE and member of ISTE. Her research interests include image processing, computer vision, AI, pattern recognition, and machine learning. She has 1 book and 2 book chapters to her credit. She has published over 30 research papers in several international and national journals and conferences. She was the principal of investigator of 4 research projects. Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It is audible, sir?
Yeah.
She has published over 30 research papers in several international and national journals and conferences. She was the principal investigator of 2 research projects funded by DCVU, Savitribai Phule University. She has worked as a resource person in various workshops and imparted training in the field of image processing and pattern recognition using MATLAB. She has also worked as reviewer for various journals and IEEE conferences. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now,
Can you hear me?
we request.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Hello. Before starting session of Dr. Shelke, madam, we are also privileged to have with us our department HOD, Honorable Dr. B. Kushare, sir. So I'd like to Kushare, sir, to please guide all the participants of this activity.
So good morning to all. So first of all, let me congratulate our team for organizing a faculty development program. The topic of relevance, today's relevance, and everyone, you are aware that the world superpower, one of the parameters which will decide which country will lead the world is going to be AI and machine learning. And that's why I congratulate our team for organizing a seminar on a topic of relevance. And this is going to be the future of the world. All of you are aware that worldwide, a lot of research is going on in this area. And in electrical engineering also, you name the field, whether it is a power system, whether it is going to be the energy generation, transmission, distribution, or whether it is maintenance, energy management, power quality management. Because today, everyone wish to achieve the peak efficiency, zero breakdown, and enter into a situation where the optimal solution or the best solution will be always possible with the least intervention from the human side. And that's why artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to be the area where a lot of faculty members as well as students, they will be required to realign and start their research. Because if India, if we are required to keep our presence in world economy as well as a world leader, because people, they say that India will be the leader of future. So all academicians, all students, all researchers, I think everyone will be required to work in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think we are very logical, we are very highly innovative, creative people. Whenever you go worldwide, you will find the Indian people, they are the best people to prepare algorithms and provide solutions, because every day we deal with uncertainties. And that's why we are the right people to work in this area. And I request all participants, all faculty members, because faculty members, they are the key drivers in academic and research. So those will guide students to enjoy today's faculty development program. And I'll say everyone in academics and research as well as in professional field, we will be required to opt this area. And I'll say take this area as one of the most important and priority area. I think that will be our contribution to the nation, because somewhere we have a chance to, everyone is aware that in IT sector worldwide, people, they know that Indian software engineers, they are the best in the world. And that's why this is also another opportunity to create a footprint in a manner that the artificial intelligence and machine learning, the India should dominate. So I wish best of luck for this today's program. The faculty members, they are the key people who work in this area, they are the authority. I request all participants to make this session highly interactive, and that the interactions are very, very much required in such a kind of emerging areas. And best of luck, enjoy the 2 day sessions, and ensure that everyone will start working in this area, so that collective effort of all citizens in various sectors will take this country to a level that people, they will say, India is one of the country where artificial AI and machine learning, a lot of research is happening and will contribute to the technology and will make the life of the mankind more easy and comfortable. Thank you very much, and good luck, and enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your valuable words and words of inspiration for us. Now I would like to request our today's expert, Dr. Sushma Shelke, madam, to please start our first session of FDP.
Yes, thank you, sir. So can you see the screen?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So then I will start the presentation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So welcome you all participants of the first session of this FDP, Introduction to AI and Machine Learning. Before starting, I would just like to acknowledge the Department of Electrical Engineering, KK Institute of Engineering, Education and Research. I would also like to thank the FDP team, especially Professor Ganesh Zadav sir and Professor Omkar Bua sir, for inviting me to this FDP. Actually, I'm very much close to this topic, so I was very much happy to get the invitation. And I also thank my company. So let's start. These are the contents. First, we'll see what is artificial intelligence and what is machine learning. Many times these terms are used interchangeably. There is quite a small difference between them that we'll see one by one. Then we'll go through all the applications of AI and ML and the applications in engineering. Then we'll go through the algorithms in machine learning, which you can use for your projects or your research work. Then we'll see what are the tools for implementation. And then we'll go through the future, the challenges. I'll also show a demo in MATLAB. So in the first session, we'll do all the basics. And in the next session, we'll do the implementation. So implementation on pen and paper. So I would like all the participants to also keep a notebook and a pen with them. So in between, we can do some calculations also, which are very interesting and very simple calculations, not anything complicated. Okay. So what is artificial intelligence? Basically, it is a research field that simulates the human behavior and human intelligence. So basically, these are the main properties of a human being. That human being behaves in a rational manner. His actions are rational. So this rationality is an important term in AI, which is replicated in machines, like in human. So when it comes to human behavior, many things are involved in this. When we want to implement the human behavior and the intelligence, then we need the computer science, we need physiology, philosophy, and control science. Many things are involved and many fields are involved. So actually, this has now become an interdisciplinary topic, not just related to computer science. So that's why I, being an electronics engineer, I had to study this extensively to implement my project. So not only computer science, but all the engineering domains require AI now. So further, we are going to those applications also in various fields, which will make you clear that how it is implemented everywhere these days. Now, due to AI, the machines can learn from experience. How the humans learn, I'll tell a small story which I'd heard when I did the AI course once, very first time. So a small child who was going to school, every day the teacher used to ask for the homework. So he was to do his homework daily. But there were some children who used to come without homework. So whenever the teacher found that the student has not done the homework, then the teacher used to ask that student to go out of the class. Okay, so go out of the class and stand. So this used to happen every day. Once what happened, the child could not do the homework due to some reason. So when the teacher entered, before the teacher asked, the child went outside the class and stood. So this is how the child had learned that if I have not done homework, I should go out and stand. So this is how our brain learns through experience. Now this ability we have to bring in the machines so that the machines learn from the experience and take the decision on their own when a new input comes. So AI can adjust to new inputs and can perform human-like tasks. So what does AI do basically? It makes a machine work like a human being and even perform the tasks. Now the complexities can be from the lowest end to the highest end depending upon what application it is. So I'll be sharing you some applications in the slides where AI is implemented. So I hope you are clear what is the main aim of AI: to simulate the human behavior and human intelligence. Now what is machine learning? How both are related? Okay, so machine learning is the subset of AI. So AI cannot be complete without machine learning. Here you can see in a small figure, it is a part of AI. If you have to implement any AI system, you will need machine learning. So it is a statistical approach. So you will learn statistically, or you can even do predictive analysis. So these are the applications of machine learning. Machine learning, if you want to understand it better, like suppose if AI is like a human body, entire human body, then machine learning is like the brain in the body. Okay, so machine learning works like a brain. It takes the data. Now there will be large amount of data. From that data, ML will extract the knowledge. After extracting the knowledge, it will learn from that knowledge. Due to this, it is able to classify the information and it is also able to predict the future. So these are the two main tasks what are expected out of a machine learning algorithms. What are these two tasks mainly? The task is to classify the information and to predict the future. We'll see the applications regarding this further. Yeah. So these are the applications of AI which we come across in our day-to-day life, many of them which we use also, like Facebook. So in Facebook, AI automatically suggests you your friends, your connections. In Amazon, you get the suggestion about buying something, some new commodity based upon your search. Netflix can suggest you the movies or any other web series for watching. YouTube also suggests you the channels based upon your interest. Alexa or Google Home. I have a Google Home at my home. So these help us in many tasks at home if you want to search something. Now here in Alexa and Google Home, it is more simple because we can directly talk with it. Just how we talk with a human being, we can directly talk. The Google Home which I have at my house, if I ask what is my name, it can even answer my name. So it has learned from my voice. It can understand the commands which I give using my voice, and then it will do the task. Like suppose if I ask what is the temperature today, then it will Google it and it will answer in words. So NLP is also included in this application. Then smartwatch. Many of you might be using smartwatches. So if you exercise for suppose at 6 o'clock in the morning for 3 consecutive days, fourth day it will remind you. If you're not doing exercise, it will remind you that it's time to exercise. It also keeps the note of your pulse and other physical parameters like how much you walked, how much you climbed, how much you ran, etc. This can be helpful for your health management also. Then Siri in iPhone is also helps work similarly. These days, laptop or cell phone unlocking can be done by using your fingerprint or face. Then fingerprint attendance system, which you might be using in your institutes. Many of them might have also joined today. So that's a really good thing. So in fingerprint attendance system, we give our fingerprints as the database initially. And then when you go next time, when you punch your thumb, then it just gives the comparison and gives you the output. If you're not enrolled, if your thumb is not in the database, so this is the procedure of machine learning. If you're not in the database, then you will not be recognized. Then these days, smart homes is also one of the application of AI. So all these applications are well known, which many industries are giving with the help of AI and machine learning. Next. why to go for AI and ML? That is the first question which generally comes in our mind, isn't it? So now the answer to this is that, first of all, AI or ML is not something which is very new these days. It was used previously also, but it was used in a simpler manner. The systems were not that complicated before. Like if you can see in the graph here, these are called as the scatter plots. Okay, we'll be studying scatter plots, we'll be plotting also today. So the scatter plot, first one you can see is a linear. Now you can see that there are red triangles and blue circles here. Now these are the features corresponding to two classes. All the terminologies I'll explain you further. Don't worry even if you don't understand. So here you can see that if you want to just separate or classify between the triangles and the circles, you can just draw a plain line, straight line here. Now here the system is linear because we can just separate it using a straight line. Now when systems are such simple, then you can just write if and else rules and classify the samples. Okay, but many times when the systems are complex, then we cannot do this by simply writing if else rules. Okay, you need more understanding of your application. If you even have to do some slight change, then you have to write the entire code again, start the system programming once again. So the things become difficult, right? So if the system is non-linear, like you can see in the second case, here you cannot just draw a plain straight line and you cannot classify the two classes, but you require a curve. Now the equation becomes bit complicated. Okay, so when you have non-linear systems, then you cannot use the program which is written for linear classification. So when there is non-linear system, then you have to go for AI or ML. Okay, so AI and ML will be helpful in classification of such systems. Now they can solve problems with greater speed, they are robust, and they are insensitive to noisy or missing data. Okay, all these things will be clear further. So this is the reason why ML has come into picture. When you have a complicated system, when you don't need to again write from scratch, whenever there are changes in the system, whenever there is noisy data, whenever there is non-linear data, then ML is helpful in that case. Only writing if else equations is not sufficient. Now we will first see the applications of AI and ML in various engineering domains before going into the algorithms. So since our theme of the workshop is power systems, so let us see what are the needs in power systems in electrical engineering. Now you people are really experts in electrical engineering. You might already be knowing I'm not an expert of electrical engineering. Still, I have added this so that all the things will be covered. So power systems basically deals with generation, transmission, distribution, utilization, and all these things of electrical power. Now there are many challenges these days in power system, like liberalization of the energy market. These days there is increased demand, efficiency, increase in renewable generation of energy, growth in interconnections and power exchanges, and there is increasing competition these days. So all these are the challenges in power systems and which needs to be met, and the conventional systems are not sufficient or not capable of meeting the ever increasing challenges in this power system. So what we need now, we need improvement in the power system planning, operation and control. The quality of electrical power is required with stability and reliability. We need to plan the power system for monitoring and control. There is increasing workload demand. So to handle these things along with conventional techniques, if we go for AI, then we can solve these complicated problems in less time. So this is the need in power system. So the applications in electrical engineering are planning for power system reliability and transmission, load forecasting, power transmission capacity and optimal power flow identification, intelligent voltage regulation system, frequency and stability control, fault detection, analysis and forecasting of electricity markets, solar and wind power, automated power restoration and management, planning and operation of distributed system. So these are some of the applications in electrical engineering, mainly related to power systems. There might be many more applications in this field, so you are better experts than me in this field. Then AI and ML applications in ENTC and computer engineering. So these two I have clubbed together because many projects are overlapping and both ENTC and computer engineers do them. So for example, smarter electronic design for designing the PCBs, chatbots for operational support, wireless communication system, image processing in various application domains. So there are several application domains in image processing because the images can be acquired by various means. For example, if you can have images taken with the help of camera or flatbed scanner. Like for example, my PhD thesis was in handwritten Devanagari character recognition using neural network. So for that, I used to take the input images using the scanners. So the script used to be scanned. I'm going to show a small demo also, which will give you an idea of how that works or how ML is implemented. I'll give you a demo in MATLAB. So in that, I had captured using images using the flatbed scanner. Images can be captured even using X-ray scanners, ultrasonic sensors, satellite images. So there are various application domains in image processing depending upon how you are acquiring the images. Then AI and ML are used in healthcare systems or medical imaging, many different things are there here in healthcare systems. Human computer interaction systems, like which use biometric systems. So what are biometrics? Biometrics are basically the features specific to human being. For example, fingerprint, face, iris, even voice, signature, handwriting, these are also biometrics. So one can interact with the computer with the help of biometrics. Like the example which I gave you, we can unlock our laptop or our mobile using biometrics. Then various wearable devices, which basically can be useful for healthcare. Computer vision systems. So these are basically used in industry where the images or the videos are taken using the camera and the decisions are taken. For example, once we had been to a company in Hinjawadi, which was manufacturing some body parts of a car. Basically, it was making the latches in the car. So the latches were on a conveyor belt and there was a Siemens machine kept there. Now this machine on the conveyor belt used to capture the images of the locks, and within fraction of seconds it used to do calculations of those body parts of that lock, and if those parts were not exactly as per the specifications, immediately the parts were removed from the conveyor belt. Only those devices, only those parts which were as per the specifications went further on the conveyor belt. So such applications using computer vision systems, mainly they are used basically in industry or monitoring real-time videos or images. Then smart sensing systems, advanced computing applications, these are all the domains in AI and ML, in ENTC and computer engineering application. Then in mechanical engineering, we can use AI and ML for manufacturing process improvement and advancement, designing and redesigning of thermal and mechanical devices, equipment failure diagnosis systems, autonomous systems, fault detection in manufacturing systems, supply chain process improvement, etc. And finally, in civil engineering, you can use AI and ML for remote sensing. So once one of the project which we had done, in that we had implemented remote sensing using ML. So there what we had done, we had the data of the GPS data and the depth of a reservoir, and using that data and using machine learning, we had computed how much is the water in the reservoir, because reservoirs, like suppose Khadakwasla Dam. So such dams are so huge that calculating the amount of water or volume of water in those reservoirs accurately is not easy. Okay, because we cannot do it manually. You cannot calculate how many liter of water is there manually. So some ML techniques were used, and the volume of water was calculated. So that was a remote sensing application. Then in civil engineering, we can use AI and ML in structural engineering, risk assessment of construction project, prediction of concrete, coefficient of thermal expansion and other properties, automatic seismic damage identification, traffic and transportation engineering, well defect classification, agriculture and irrigation. So these are some of the application areas in civil engineering. So all this was about the various applications which we see in our day-to-day life, as well as the projects or the research which is carried out in various engineering domains. Now let us move to the technical side of ML. Okay, so we will see about the machine learning algorithms. Now, machine learning algorithms can be roughly classified into supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So what is supervised and what is unsupervised? Supervised learning is based on input data and output data. Now don't worry if you don't understand what is input data, what is output data at all, because today in our workshop we are actually going to see an example and we are going to solve it manually, which will make you clear, because there might be students in this workshop, there might be faculty also. So many times what happens, we focus on programming, but remember, programming is not a difficult task. Main task is understanding the basics. Once the basics are clear, they can be simply implemented into programming. Many times what happens was more, and many times I've seen that when students used to give exam, they are more focused on the codes and programming. But when an instruction is written, or even in MATLAB, when an inbuilt instruction is written and it is executed, what happens actually at the back end is not clear. Many faculties, if they are there in this group, even they might have experienced this. So what is important now is to understanding the working of that algorithm, how the algorithm works, how does it behave, how does it take the decision. This is what I'm going to show you today and teach you. And you will not find that in any video, in any site, anywhere on the internet. Okay, so I'll make sure that you will have something good out of this FDP and giving your time today. Okay, so in supervised learning, we have input data and output data, and both on input data and output data, the algorithm learns. But in unsupervised learning, we only have input data. We don't have any knowledge about output. Ask that beforehand, madam, how there will be information about the output. So all the things will be clear further in further slides, and also by solving the numerical, you'll understand it. Okay, so we will see the first algorithm. Now, if you read the books, maybe you'll find one or two more algorithms like semi-supervised learning, which is derived by using, say, supervised and unsupervised only. You might find reinforcement, which is a small again modification. But in many AI books, mainly supervised and unsupervised are more focused and explained. So let's focus on these two and go into the detail. Instead of learning many things and just going through superficially, let us learn these two things in detail. Once you are clear with this, other things are just very simple. So what is supervised learning? Basically, there involves supervision. So supervision by whom? By a teacher, like that kind of thing. That means here there is input as well as output information available, right? So like how a teacher does supervision during examination, that way here there is supervision by the input as well as output. Okay, now the algorithm here initially has the information about input and output, and using that it learns. Like for example, when we were kids, our teacher used to teach us A, B, C, D. So we knew that when this is the shape, then that is A, or when that is the shape, it is B. So we have already learned it. Today, suppose we are reading something, we don't go back and again study and understand how A is written and what is A, isn't it? Not required. Why it is not required? Because our brain is trained for that. Okay, so this is how here machine learning also works into two phases. One is the training phase and another is the testing phase. During training phase, the algorithm is trained with the help of input as well as output. That means if this is the input, that is the output. In this way, the algorithm is trained. So algorithm learns when it is trained. So this is called as supervised learning. So once it is trained, once it is understood, then it is used in the testing phase. So what happens in a testing phase? Some new input is given and then it will give the output. Okay, when this is the input, yes, it is suppose C, right? But for C you have to again teach it. Without teaching, it cannot answer, right? So now, what is the important thing over here? The most important thing in supervised learning is the database collection. Why database collection is important? Because let's come back to the supervision example. So, or the teacher example. Now, when a teacher assesses the answer papers, many teachers, if they are here, might have really assessed the papers which are written in worst handwriting, isn't it? Still, they are able to read it. I will really appreciate all my fellow colleagues here. I really appreciate them. So even if it is written in worst handwriting, they read it and they assess them very nicely. How is this possible? Because over the years, they have seen all different types of handwritings, all different varieties of handwritings. So that means they are trained. So similarly, in supervised learning, to make the algorithm successful, you have to give all the different type of data with all whatever noise is possible, so that even if a noisy input comes or a very different kind of input appears, still it gives you the correct answer. Okay, so database collection is a crucial task. Now I'm going to explain all that thing into detail further, so don't worry. Database and everything will be very much clear with you. Now supervised learning can be used for classification and regression. Now what is classification or what is regression? I'll tell you with the help of some examples also. Let's see with this simple example, training phase and testing phase. Now suppose you have a small system which classifies the fruits, apples and bananas. Okay, a small system is made which classifies into two classes. Okay, apple class, banana class. Other terminologies also I'll explain you, don't worry. Now to this learning algorithm which you can see here, you have to give all the different samples of apples. So you can see here, there are green apples, there are yellow apples, there are two colored apples, there are red colored apples. Okay, various different samples of apples are there which are applied. So the algorithm will learn, and whenever you give this input, you will also give the output that it is 1, it is class 1. So whenever an apple comes, it should be class 1. Whenever a banana comes, it should be class 0 or output 0. This is how you will train it and the algorithm will learn it. Okay. Then in the testing phase, what will happen? A new sample will be given. Now a new sample can be apple or it can be banana also. So if a banana comes, your output should be near 0. If an apple comes, then your output should be near 1. Okay, so this is how the supervised learning works in the testing phase. So did you get this? This is the training phase, okay, and this is the testing phase. So in the two phases, a supervised learning algorithm learns. Okay, Unlike unsupervised. Now this will not happen in the unsupervised. What will not happen? There is no teacher here to teach. There is no teacher who will tell you that if this is the input, this is the output. This is how you have to process. There is no one to tell. You have only input information. No output is there. Okay. How will the algorithm will find out the similarities between the inputs and it will group together. Okay. Further, I'll make it more clear. Don't worry. So what this unsupervised learning will do, suppose the same example is there. You have apples and you have bananas. So all the fruits are supposed given one by one simultaneously to the algorithm. And remember now, here there is no learning phase and testing phase. Directly you have the testing phase. So here, when first apple comes, then the algorithm will understand its features. Then when second, suppose banana comes, then the features of bananas are compared with the features of apples. Algorithm will find that they are quite different. So banana will be kept separately. Now suppose one more apple is given. So then algorithm compares the third apple with the first apple and the banana. It will compare to whom it is matching more. So algorithm will see that there is matching between first apple and not with the banana. So the third banana is kept in that group. So this way groupings are done. So you can see here there is an apple group and banana group. Okay. Yes. So now we have completed one level. So machine learning algorithms, we saw that how they are divided into supervised learning and unsupervised learning. How supervised learning learns with the help of input as well as output.
It's 11 o'clock.
But unsupervised does not have the information of output. It has only input information. Further, we'll go into the next level of classification. Supervised learning is further classified into classification and regression. So now we are now moving towards the applications. Okay, we are moving from algorithms to applications slowly one by one. In unsupervised learning, there is clustering. Clustering, or you can, in simple sense, you can call grouping. Okay, many times what happens, you know, in machine learning, this is a secret, I can say. I used to teach CVML in COAP. So I worked in COAP. There I used to teach computer vision machine learning. So when I had already implemented machine learning for my PhD, while teaching machine learning, then I went through the entire course. I explored all the course. I learned myself and every detail. Then I, with solving numericals, today you'll get that experience. I shared with the students. When I was doing this, then what outcome, what secret I came across, you know, machine learning, if you're doing the project, you might have even come across many books also of ML. They are so mathematical that we feel that, oh God, what this machine learning is. But actually it is really very simple, very logical, and very simple mathematics is there, not a really big thing. As you explore that, it will understand that name is so big and looks tough. But as we go on implementing, the things are very simple logical, because they have to work like how our brain works, right? So working with these problems is also like very simple, like how we work with any problem. So we'll see this thing one by one. So let's go through classification, regression, and clustering one by one. Now, before understanding that, let me share you some terminologies. Otherwise, you won't understand what is that. Before going into let's understand what are the terminologies. So first is pattern, then class, samples, feature and feature vector, training and learning, testing, database, training set, test set, recognition rate or accuracy, misclassification, and so on. Now only writing these names will not understand anything. Let us go through an example. Okay. Now don't get confused at what madam is showing. This is just for an example. So let's understand how the terminology is with an example of a system. Suppose you have a system put in your office, maybe in your cabin, wherever, and you have a meeting with, suppose, Salman Khan or Shah Rukh Khan or Amir Khan, and they are going to come to your office, and you have a system fitted in your office that whenever someone out of these three comes, you will get a message that Amir has come. Okay, you'll get a message on your desk itself, on your mobile itself. That is a system. right? How your system should work now, basically. If Amir comes, Amir only should be shown on your thing. It should not happen that Amir has come and you are saying that Salman has come. It should not happen, right? So that is not a good system then. Your system should be such that let the person comes with specs, let the person comes with goggles, with any hairstyle, with hat, with any jacket, any kind of t-shirt, okay? Still, you should get the correct answer, right? Now, if you see this problem statement, all are faces. All the faces have same features. They have 2 eyes, 2 eyebrows, nose, lips, isn't it? Ears. So this is a pattern. When there is similarity, same thing on all these things, all the samples, that is called as a pattern. So here face is a pattern. Now there are 3 classes. We are going to recognize 3 people. So 3 persons. So there are 3 classes. You can name them as class A, class B, class C. Different books use different terminologies. Some name class A, class B, class C. Some books write class 0, class 1, class 2, like that. Okay. How many number of classes will be there then? It depends upon how many things you have to classify. Here we are classifying between 3 persons, so 3 classes. Suppose you want to classify the number. You have a project where you're doing numeral recognition. Okay, so generally it is done in, suppose, postal automation. You have to find out the zip code. In foreign countries, they do it automatically because the systems are already implemented for English. In India, it is not available because work on Indian characters is still going on. So that was my PhD topic. So suppose I want to do numeral recognition, then my classes are 10, 0 to 9. Okay. So it depends upon what is our application. Today, the application which we are going to study, there will be using 3 classes again. Now you can see that these are 3 classes, and in every class there are 3 samples. 3 samples, you can see 3 photographs of every person. 3 samples are there, right? So now my data, how many samples in all? My data here, this example is having 9 samples in all, okay? And 3 samples per class, right? This is just an example. In reality, you should have more number of samples per class, okay? So these terminologies are there. Next terminologies are features and feature vectors. Now what are features basically? These are some discriminating parameters. See, now all these 3 persons have same things on the faces. Still you should be able to recognize who has come, right? If suppose 2 twins are going to come, then what will happen? It is so difficult. So there should be some discriminating things, discriminating parameters, which are called as the features, which discriminate one person from the another person. These are called as the features. Features should be easily accessible. They should be permanent. They should not change over time. Okay, features change over time. Let's suppose if passport of a child, then after 10 years you have to renew the passport and renew all the features also. Even in Aadhaar card, you might be knowing, if you are given the features of your kids after 15 years, you have to renew all those biometrics. Why? Because biometrics change over time. Our face changes over time, but the iris doesn't. So if you consider the features of biometrics, iris features doesn't change over lifetime. Our eyes remain same over entire lifetime. So your features should be such that they are discriminating. They are not changing, unchanging over time. They should be able to extract it easily. Okay, they should be robust. So these are all the features of features, you can say, or the characteristics of the features. Then what is feature vector? Suppose you have derived many features, then you can just append them together one by one and make a vector, because you have to make a vector, not a matrix, a vector, before applying it to any machine learning algorithm, like suppose neural network. Then testing and training. So we saw that in supervised learning, we have to apply the features extracted from the images in the database, and then you have to do training. And in the testing phase, the system will be testing. Now, when you have the database here itself, you can have training set and testing set. I'll show when I'm executing MATLAB example, I'll show you that. Now, within this, suppose from the database, you can use 60% of the database for training and 40% for testing. Or some can use 70% for testing, 30% for 70 for training, 30 for testing, or 80 for training, 20 for testing. So it depends. You can do this and check that what type of bifurcation gives you better accuracy. Okay, so that is training set and test set. Then recognition rate and misclassification. So these are the evaluation parameters. So if Salman Khan arrives and you are getting a message that Shah Rukh has arrived, then it is called as misclassification. Okay, there your system has failed. This will not work in the applications which are very critical. Like suppose you are doing a medical application like recognition of tumor, and if there is a tumor and say that tumor is not there, then it is hazardous to life, isn't it? So you cannot bear misclassification in such cases. In few cases it will do okay, no problem if little bit of a misclassification is there. So you can evaluate the system based upon its accuracy, how accurate it is. Suppose over entire month, suppose all the three persons, suppose Shah Rukh, Salman and Amir came to your office 100 times and 100 times the answer was exactly correct, then the accuracy of your system is 100%. No misclassification, right? I hope you understand. Case in cases and recognition, I saw that the misclassification rate was more when there were similar characters. Like in Devanagari or Marathi, you might be knowing dh and gh are very similar. Then t and dh are very similar. So due to this, I used to get misclassification for those more. Okay, so I hope you understood terminologies. Now there are few more, but this much is sufficient for things learning. Few more I'm going to cover further in the further slides. Now let's go into more detail. Understand that what are classification, regression and clustering now. So many times what happens, I'll tell you. My example, I'll tell you. When I took up my PhD in 2006, that time so much information was not available, not on internet or anything. We were not using YouTube and also so extensively as we use today. So when I took the topic, I directly finalized the topic. Handwriting, Devanagari character recognition using artificial neural network. So I declared that I'm going to do artificial neural network. Slowly when I started digging through ML, then we found that, okay, we could have used this technical, so that technical. So, okay, so things are not clear initially that which algorithm to choose for my problem. That is a big thing, isn't it? You might also face that. What happens? We abruptly choose any algorithm, but the reason behind choosing the algorithm is not known. So this is not desirable. Then it will add to your efforts. Remember, what drawback will happen then? It will add to your efforts. Your time will be wasted more. And these days we should get the thing so fast. So we cannot waste our time. So first let's understand that when to go for which algorithm. Okay, so some examples I have put up over here. Like, for example, if you have an application where you have to find out whether a tumor is benign or malignant, means what? Whether the tumor is cancerous or non-cancerous, or you have to decide if the user is authorized or unauthorized. Okay, or if you have to decide, now this is electrical engineering application. See, if you have to decide if the apartment if the building or if the city is high power consumption power system or low power consumption power system. Okay, so if you have to decide, then what to do? You have to go for classification. Some other examples are there. All domains have covered here for your information. If you have to recognize the face from many faces, or if you have to recognize the number from 10 numbers, if you have to perform fault detection and classification for power transmission systems, then again you have to go for classification. Okay, so first 3 example tell you an example where you have only 2 classes, like benign or malignant, high power consumption or low power consumption. So these are called as binary classification problems, and others are multiple classification or multi-classification problems. Now, when we have such type of classification problems or such type of problems, then we should choose supervised learning and apply classification algorithm. Okay, today we are going to learn that into detail, classification algorithm. I hope you got an idea that when to go for classification. Okay, then let's go into more detail of classification. So what is classification? Basically, classification is the process of predicting the class to which the input sample or input that particular input belongs to. Okay, then how we are going to do this? From the sample, we have to extract the features of the samples, train the algorithm in the training phase, and then in the testing phase, a new input is given and it is tested. Okay, so since it is supervised, same process. What is the process? Training phase, testing phase. Train during training phase, algorithm will learn, and in the testing phase, it will test. I hope you are clear with supervised now. Now, there are 2 types of classification. When you want to give only yes or no answer, only 2 things are there, then it is a 2-class classification or a binary classification. And when it is more than 2 classes, an example is shown here in the figure. It is a multi-class classification problem. So this multi-class classification problem with the figure which is shown now, I'm going to show you the MATLAB demo for this. Okay. Then there are some other problems, suppose, like you have to predict the temperature. What will be the temperature tomorrow? Or what will be the temperature on next Monday? Or you have to predict the stock market. Nowadays, you know that the stock market is down due to Corona. So how will be the stock market in next month or next to next month? You have to predict. Okay, now only we have to predict what will be there in the future. Then you have to predict the insurance premium for a person whose age is suppose something, who with some salary, who can pay so much amount in every month or every year, like that. You have to predict the electric energy consumption of a commercial building in a city, or you have to forecast the wind power on some day. Then you can apply regression. Again, regression is which technique? Technique in supervised learning method. So what is regression basically? Here from the examples you might have understood now, we are not classifying anything, but we are predicting the future. How you will predict the future? From the already known input and output pairs. From the known input-output pairs, you will train the system. Once it is trained, it will predict. Now, prediction might not be exact because it is prediction, but it should be as close as possible to the exact, isn't it? I hope you agree with. Now, let's see what is regression. Okay, so what is regression? It is mapping between inputs. So you can see here linear regression scatter plot. So you can see that there are red triangles over here arranged or put here as per their distribution. Now suppose the mapping is done. Here you can see the line is drawn such that all the triangles are as close as possible to the line. If you had drawn a line like this, straight, parallel to y-axis, or if you had drawn like this, parallel to x-axis, then the mapping is not optimum, isn't it? So you have to draw a line such that your mapping is optimum as shown here in the graph. So the equation of line y is equal to mx plus c, you have to do the mapping and you have to find out m value and c value for this mapping. Now once when m and c is found out for any value of x, you can find out y. Such simple it is, right? So for example, I'll give you a simple example. Suppose this graph represent, how is the graph now here, which is there in the figure? The line, how is the line? It is increasing. It is at plus 45 degree. So this regression is positive regression. Okay. Let us see an example of positive regression. For example, number of hours studied by a student and percentage of marks scored. Okay, so then it is positive. Number of hours studied, more number of hours studied, more percentage of marks. Obviously, there will be some exception, but this is a general mapping. And if the linear regression is not positive but negative, then your line will be at minus 45, suppose. Then what is a sample example for that? Number of hours spent on WhatsApp. Yeah, many times it happens. Number of hours spent on WhatsApp and percentage of marks scored. Obviously, we are assuming that we are not studying on WhatsApp. Okay, so if in that case, your graph will be like this. As hours are increasing, what will happen? Your percentage will go on reducing. Okay, so that it depends upon how your inputs are or what your system is. Now here, once suppose this mapping is obtained, I will give you a new numbers of hours, suppose. So you can map this X on the line and then corresponding Y, I can just map from this and find out the new value of Y. So this is how regression works. Basically, it is finding the mapping between input and output. Here we are not classifying anything. Now, we saw two different types of applications where we saw classification and prediction. Now there are still some other type of problems, suppose, like if you have to do change detection in Landsat satellite images, or you have to segment blood cells into RBCs and WBCs, or cancerous cells and non-cancerous cells, or you have to classify the documents on web, you have to detect fraud in credit card, or you have to save energy consumption and optimize transmission in wireless communication, or you have to cluster generators based on similar behaviors. Now this is electrical engineering problem. Then you have to go for unsupervised learning and then use clustering in that. Okay, so I hope you understood that which algorithm to choose to which type of problems. This is very important task beforehand when you go for your research work. Many times this is kept directly an algorithm is chosen. So I'm telling you out of learning from my mistake. Okay, I'm not trying to teach you, but I'm telling you from learning from my mistake. So how is your problem, what is your target, and then understand what algorithm you need, what type of algorithm you need. Okay, I hope you understood. So what is clustering? In clustering, the input data is divided into groups. The groups are based upon the similarity, how the similarity is calculated based upon its features. Before that, information of output is available here, as is the case in supervised learning. That is important thing. So you can see in the scatter plot here, there are features scattered together, and after clustering, they are separated into groups, right? So this is how clustering works. Yes. So now we have completed second level also of the algorithms. We saw classification used for classifying the input, regression used for predicting, clustering used when we don't have output information beforehand, and it is used for grouping. Now, how to implement classification? There are several ways, several algorithms to implement classification. There are several algorithms to implement regression. There are several algorithms to implement clustering. For example, classification can be implemented using naive Bayes algorithm, linear discriminant analysis, neural network, support vector machine, k-nearest neighborhood. Okay, so various things are there. If you want to do regression, you can do linear regression, hierarchical regression, or hierarchical classifier. You can use neural network here. You can use decision tree. You can use ensembles. For clustering, you can use k-means clustering. You can use hierarchical clustering, neural network clustering, hidden Markov model, Gaussian mixture model. Many algorithms are there today. Many are there. I have just shown few here. So which one to choose, isn't it? That is another big question. So here the answer is you can choose based upon how you use problem statement and what are your requirements out of that. You want either more accuracy, or you want a portable device, you have less memory with you, you don't have more time when you are testing, you want fast testing, you can, or you want fast training. Many factors are there. So depending upon that, you have to choose the algorithm. Okay, so today we are going to see the nearest neighborhood classifier and k nearest neighborhood classifier. Actually, we'll solve the problem and see into detail. Let's go ahead. So we will see that whenever we are implementing the machine learning algorithm here in supervised learning, then what we have to find out the performance parameter. So now next is the performance parameter or evaluation or performance evaluation. How will you evaluate your performance? Based upon accuracy. So we saw one example before. Accuracy. Now you will require a pen here. Okay, you will require a pen here. Omkar sir, can you hear me? Omkar sir? Okay. So these are the performance parameters. And sir, how can I see the chat so that the participants can put their comments?
Actually, ma'am, I'm monitoring this question and answer panel. So I'm getting questions over here. At the end of session, we can have a question answer session.
No, sir. In between, if I'm asking question, because they have to solve, na? So if they can just type their answers and I can see whether they are answered correctly, is it possible? Because even I cannot hear the participants, so at least if they chat, then I can see them. Okay, slowly you can find it out. Till then I'll continue. I'm not waiting. Huh?
Okay.
So to understand performance evaluation, let's understand this confusion matrix. Okay. Now see here, important thing what is written on the title, the confusion matrix is for 2 classifier. Okay, the confusion matrix will go on increasing as the number of classes increases. So for a 2-class classifier, the matrix will be 2 by 2. For a 3-class classifier, it will be 3 by 3. For a 10-class classifier, it will be 10 by 10. Okay. Now here we have some very technical information. Whenever you are assessing any classification kind of problem, then you will use this confusion matrix to find out the accuracy. Many times only accuracy and misclassification is sufficient. But I have seen in electrical engineering problems, they go for few other parameters also. So that's why I have included here. Now what you can see from this confusion matrix, see. This confusion matrix will indicate how we give the classification result and how we expect, okay, or what is the actual result and what is the prediction of our system. Let us consider that there are 165 samples. Okay, let us consider an example where there are 165 corona patients. Okay, probably you'll understand this more, very easily with this example. There are 165 corona patients, and you have to find out whether you have to give the result whether they are having corona or they are not having corona disease. Okay, so now we have built a matrix. So you can see the first, you can see this first quadrant, true negative. True negative means what? The patient is not having corona. Actual no. Okay, the patient is not having corona. But since suppose the patient had fever, okay, and you have tested the person. So, but the patient is not having corona and your system has predicted no. So is it correct decision? Yes. True negative. It is correct decision. Means the patient is not having corona, actual no, and predicted also no. Let us see our case. The patient is not having corona and the system is saying yes. Okay, that is called as false positive. not having, and you are predicting yes. So it is not positive, but it is false positive. Now this one, third quadrant. Actual yes and predicted no. Means what? The person is having corona and you are saying that it is not having corona. This is false negative. Last option, true positive. That means the patient is having corona and you are saying yes, having corona. Okay, true positive. So these are the 4 cases which you can have. True negative, false positive, false negative, true positive. They are usually called TN, FP, FN, TP. Right? I have put an example over here so that we can do calculation also. Now see, there are 2 errors here. Which are true errors? This is first one. The person is not having corona. Okay, here in true negative, what you are doing? Person is not having corona, and what you are doing? You are saying yes, it is having. Okay, sorry, this one, false positive. A false positive, what you are doing? The person is not having corona and you are saying yes. And this one, which is more dangerous. Why it is more dangerous? The person is having corona and you are saying no. So why purposely I have taken this example of corona? Because these 2 errors, false positive is called as type 1 error, false negative is called as type 2 error. Now false positive error, if it occurs, actually error should not occur in any case, isn't it? Error should not occur in any case. But type 1 error is such error that even if it occurs, okay, we will manage. But false negative type 2 error is such thing that if it occurs, then we cannot tolerate that. We cannot bear it. See, if a person is not having corona and if you're saying yes and giving the medicine, okay, still somehow the person will survive. But if the person is having corona and you are saying no, so you will not treat the person and the person's life is at stake, isn't it? So it is very dangerous to the life of the person. So that's why this false negative type 2 error cannot be tolerated. Okay. Now see, there are some figures given here. For example, to do the calculation. For example, suppose in this case, we have true negative 50, false negative 5, false positive 10, true positive 100. Okay. And horizontally and both vertically, they are added and kept here. So 50 plus 5. So all no's are 55 here, predicted no's, and predicted yes are 110, and all yes on the right hand side are 60 and 105. So total should be 165. So let's see the formula for the parameters. Okay. Evaluation parameters, performance evaluation. So for this example, how to calculate accuracy? Accuracy is TP plus TN upon total. Accuracy is TP plus TN upon total. So if you have pen and notebook, please calculate this. This is the data. TP plus TN upon total. Write down the formula. This is the data. So that I can get time to drink water.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Madam, chat box is visible to you now. I have made you organizer.
Sir, I'll just check and let you know. 1 minute.
Yeah.
Chat box. Yes, sir. Yes. 1 minute. Sir.
So I guess they can answer over here in chat box.
1 minute, sir. I'll just type and check, sir.
Yeah.
Is my message visible for you, sir?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm getting the answers here. Yeah.
Yes. Is it working?
It is working. I'm getting the answers.
Okay.
Students are, participants are solving and they are giving the answer. Good.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yes, correct. Accuracy is 0.91, we can say, yes, because it is 0.909. So we can say 91% is the accuracy. Yes.
Ma'am,
So
some
this-
participants are requesting that showing data again. Can you please just show the
Yes,
data?
yes. I will show the data. All of you just see the data. Okay, accuracy is done. Misclassification, we have to calculate, that is just 1 minus accuracy. If you do, you will get your misclassification rate. So by the time when others are taking down this data, you can calculate misclassification 1 minus accuracy, or the formula is FP plus FN upon total. FP plus FN upon total. So all whatever wrong decisions are there, that we are considering FP and FN, false negative and false positive. FP plus FN upon total. Those we have calculated. Now calculate the calculated accuracy. Now calculate misclassification. I think all have copied now. Take down the formula. FP plus FN upon total for misclassification, or simply 1 minus accuracy you do, still it is okay. Yes. Some participants have given misclassification also. Sensitivity and specificity. Solve that. Specificity is 0.909 is the wrong answer. Please check. Ujjwala madam, please check. Saili madam has given correct answer for sensitivity. Many have given. Yes. 95% is the sensitivity and specificity is last parameter. Yes, sensitivity answer is correct. $90 is not a correct answer. 0.83 correct. That is good. So very nicely, enthusiastically, many participants have calculated. So I think you like calculating also. You are not feeling bored at this. So you will definitely enjoy the numerical which will solve further for classification. Yes, correct answer, 0.833. Naresh sir, Goyal sir. So these are the performance parameters. Yes, Navni. Yes, Ujjwala ma'am. Yes, correct answer. So these are the performance evaluation. So suppose, for example, you implement your project where you find out some classification, then you can use such confusion matrix. You can find out these percentages in your paper. When you publish a paper, then you can write that for my problem statement, I got 98% accuracy, 97.5% accuracy, whatever you are getting, you can mention. Okay, good. Let's move further because still we have many things to do. So let's see this block diagram, which we are going to implement also. So for supervised learning, we implement this. What we have initially, we have training samples, we do data preparation, then we do feature extraction, then we give all the features extracted to the algorithm, learning algorithm. That means we train it in the training phase. In the testing phase, we have test samples, we give it to the classifier and we take the decision, right? I'll give you an actual example which I have done for my PhD. Okay, and some examples also I'll show you. So okay, all of you stop solving now. If you're complete, very good. If it is not complete, you can do it later, no problem. Okay, so please don't repeat because I'm the steps very. Once the steps are clear, now even if this is an image processing problem, don't worry. You can very easily implement and apply to your problem statement in any domain, either electrical, mechanical, civil, any domain. Okay, you can apply to any domain. And these days I'm doing a psychology course, you know, and yesterday I came to know that these things I can even apply in psychology. Psychology. So I'm very happy. Yesterday we had a class where we studied statistical parameter extraction in psychology. Okay, this we can apply in finance field, healthcare field, anywhere you can implement this, having the information or the data in hand. And if you want to do similar application like take the decision, or you have to do some forecasting kind of thing or grouping kind of thing, you can apply. Just you have to put that problem statement into technical words which are understood by the computer. Okay, so let's see the character recognition application over here. So what is the first thing which we do when we are doing any image processing? First we'll require an image. Okay, so in this example, let us understand what is my input. Whenever you do any projects, if you are students, there are students over here, for you, if you are doing any project, first understand what is my input and what is my output. In my case, in this problem, this is not my PhD problem. This is a simple problem which I am putting here, which my COP students had done. So you should understand what is your input and what is your output. Here my input is an image and my output is a file with extension .txt or .doc. Input is .jpeg or .bmp, .tiff. Output is .text or .doc. Initially this should be clear to you. Okay, then after getting the image, I'll do some pre-processing or data preparation, you can say. Okay, enhancement, then segmentation, then I'll extract the features, then I'll apply machine learning algorithm, and then I'll take the decision. So these are the steps. So here we are implementing supervised learning algorithm. Now next slide will make this picture clear to you. See, what is my input image? Something is written here. Now this script is there written in Marathi, although it is not handwritten. This is printed. Okay, you will ask, madam, it is printed, it is so easy, isn't it? But this was something interesting I'll share with you. So when I was in COAP, then we used to get all the documents which were in Marathi, and then really we used is written in that. Sometimes the words were so hard. You also know that words in Marathi are very hard. We are so used to using English words in between that if we read some typical words in Marathi, then it is very difficult. So then what we did in first step, we converted this input image into text. In the second stage, what we did, we converted the recognized text in Marathi into English translation. So that was the entire thing over here. So here you can see there is input image here, that is scanned using a flatbed scanner, or a photograph is taken using camera, and then it is pre-processed, or it is called data preparation. In between are data preparation steps. I'll tell you data preparation also. You might be knowing more in electrical engineering also, we'll see later. Now you can see that input image is a bit tilted, isn't it? There is a skew. So in pre-processed image, you can see that skew is removed and it appears straight. These are actual outputs after executing the code. Then what is done? The image is made black and white. So these are some important necessary steps in this project. After that, in segmentation, what is done? See, all the lines are separated, all the words are separated, and all the characters are separated. And you can see that segmented characters are there here. Okay, Bharat. Then from this segmented characters, features are extracted. Now there are many types of features. I'll not go into details of those. For your understanding, just simply I have put the bit pattern here. What is that bit patterns? You can see, you just see this bar. If there are black pixels means 0. If there are white pixels means 1. Simply. So these features are applied to neural network. Now it is not so simple also. Many things are there. You will come to know when you actually implement your project. So these features are applied, suppose, to neural network in the learning mode. So in the first mode, in training phase, all different characters you'll implement, you'll apply, algorithm will learn, okay, this is bha, this is ra, this is ta, this is the a dandi, and then slowly it will learn, and when you give a new image, then it will recognize, and here recognized character is shown over here. Okay, Bharat. That is the output in dot text or dot doc. Now that output I will save, or I will edit it, or I will convert it into PDF, I'll transmit it, any kind of post processing, whatever is required can be done based upon your project. Okay. Crucial thing what we studied in supervised learning was the database collection. Okay. So how to collect the database? For example, there are suppose 40 characters. For every 40 characters, what we did, we took various different fonts of Devanagari, which are generally used in all government offices. Like that, Shiva is there and Kiran is there. So many are there. So we took 5 different fonts and we took 5 different font sizes. So how much is total database? 40 characters into 5 fonts into 5 font sizes. Those many are the characters in my database. Out of these characters, 70% we use for training and 30% we use for testing. And we use new characters also for testing. Okay, so this is how machine learning works. One example I'll share to you to understand full all steps. Similarly, you can implement for any other thing. Okay, then. So how to build a ML solution? So to build an ML solution, first we should have the answers to these questions. What questions you have? What solution I'm looking for? Okay, what I'm looking for. Like suppose in my case, I was looking for a solution where I want to recognize the printed or handwritten script, isn't it? So that is what I'm looking for. Then second is how to phrase the problem to go to the required solution, because the problem will be non-technical, right? Problem will be non-technical. So you have to convert it technical so that you can implement. So your students or your engineers implement. Is the data set sufficient to obtain the solution? If the database is too less, then you will not get sufficient accuracy. Which pre-processing steps I have to use before feature extraction? Because pre-processing also, to a larger extent, decides the accuracy. If pre-processing is not accurate, is not done correctly or not done properly, your result is affected. Okay, pre-processing is also very essential stage. Like for example, suppose you have a meeting. Okay, so for a meeting, what all pre-processing you'll do initially? What all you'll do? Before going for a meeting, you'll dress properly. Okay, then you'll collect all the documents, you will make a good presentation. Even if you have all the entire knowledge, still you will take care of all these things also which affect for the success of the meeting very much, isn't it? If you go for a meeting without any documents, probably many things you might miss out. So pre-processing step is a very initial step in the entire project, but that is a very essential step. Okay, then which features you will extract from the data? That is very important. For example, if there are students in the class and I ask you that you classify the students into girls and boys based upon the surnames. If I give you the data, which is surname, and I say divide them into girls and boys. Now you will see that this information is so hopeless information, or it is of no use. How can you classify whether the person is a girl or a boy based upon surname? Then suppose if I give you first names also, okay, then you will get better result. From first names we can classify. Still there will be some misclassification because names like Kiran, Sheetal can be names which are common in boys as well as girls. So here there are chances of misclassification, isn't it? So features is very important, which should give you the right decision along with the classifier. Okay, how to measure the success of the solution is another important thing we discussed before. Are you looking for accuracy? Are you looking for speed? Are you looking for portability? What is that factor which you are focusing which is that parameter which you are enhancing in your project. That is important. And then what post processing you should do finally. That is also known beforehand. Otherwise, there is scope creep. Scope creep means things go on adding and adding and adding, and your project or your PhD is not ending only. So this should not happen. You should beforehand know where I'm going to stop. What is my post processing? What is the final thing where I want to get to? Okay. So these are the questions you should first understand, have the clear picture, and then you can start. Tools. Okay. What are the tools for implementing machine learning? Python, C, C++, Java, R, JavaScript, MATLAB, Octave, Ruby. Okay, there are many more, but these are the which are most popular. First five are the again popular compared to the rest. So which are these? Python. This is used by more than 50% of the population in the industry. Then at second number, C, C++ is used. Then Java is at the third number. Then R is used. And then JavaScript is used. So these are mainly used in the industry. After that, SAS, MATLAB, Octave, Ruby are used then by less than 10% of the population in industry. So teaching faculty mainly focuses on MATLAB. Many practicals are done in MATLAB, and there are inbuilt functions also which make the research fast. Okay, you can write your own functions also in MATLAB. So you can take help of inbuilt function and your own function. So that's why MATLAB is very commonly used. These days Python has become very popular. Python is also freely available. You don't have to pay. That way MATLAB is costly. So people prefer Python. So, and even Python libraries are there for machine learning applications. And if you have to implement using hardware like Raspberry Pi and all, so that is also very simple then using Python. So it depends upon which language you are using. See, language is not very important. Many times we get stuck in programming language, as I told you. Any language you can learn once you know the algorithm. Only the syntax changes per algorithm, isn't it? Or anyone can help you also while doing programming, your friends or your students. But what is important? Understanding the logic behind the algorithm. Understanding the algorithm is important. You can implement on any platform once the logic is known to us. So any language you can pick up and you can do your project. Next, future in ML. So we saw many applications so far, they are already been implemented, but as you go slowly, we will find that machine learning more and more. We are almost dependent nowadays also, isn't it? So for example, intelligent gaming, it is already used, but more and more intelligence will come into picture. Self-driving cars, now these are being tested, and to a small extent it is being used, but extensively they will be used. Yeah, but in India, it will take more time, we know that. Automated transportation, doing hazardous jobs, environmental protection, robots as friends and personalized assistants. So robots for elders, here the robots will serve AI and machine algorithms, very useful. These days, we know there are very less people in the house. Then robots can be used as friends. Personalized assistants, as day by day the responsibilities are increasing and we have to do things at a very fast rate. It is very difficult to remember all the things. Then this personalized assistant can help you to remember your things, do the things in time. Many things it will handle on its own. Like some example these days we can see on Google that the assistant can directly book your appointment with someone, with hospital or anywhere, isn't it? Robots for elders, we know that these days in the nuclear families, kids go out for study or for job, and then elders are alone at home. It is very risky to keep them alone. So here robots can help to take care of these elders, to remind them of their medicines and many things, or even alarm us during some hazardous conditions. Healthcare. So here it is tremendous useful in healthcare. Smart homes. So smart homes, some applications have come up. We see in television ads also, but they are not so much used. But slowly, as the days proceed, as the systems come up, we'll be able to see that we will rely more and more in ML. People will find more opportunities in these domains. So let them be from any background, but they will have lot of things, lot of applications developed in ML. So this is future in ML. Challenges. So what are the challenges whenever you implement? Because I have experienced this during my PhD, that whenever I used to use my PC that time and keep it for training, or laptop, it used to directly fail only. It used to say out of memory. So you require a very good CPU. We require very good memory. You have to choose algorithms for classifier, feature extraction, and all stages very properly. Okay, dimension reduction should be done so that the memory requirement reduces. Okay, so these are the challenges. Deep learning these days requires still more memory and processing capacity. So many times for deep learning we go for GPU. So in deep learning we have many layers, like in neural network. What we do, simple neural network, we extract the features and we apply to the machine learning algorithm. But deep learning on itself, it will extract the feature. So it becomes more intelligency. So it will take the features and it will train it, and then it will test. So if hidden layers are also more, then more memory and more CPU processing capacity is required. So these are the challenges basically. And slowly, as we go ahead, we will definitely we can tackle these problems. So more and more faster algorithms are coming up, which are executed faster with lesser number of epochs are there. So if you have worked with neural network, you might have seen many different learning algorithms are there, and faster algorithms are there. So those can be implemented. So I was planning to show the MATLAB demo, but I think there are only 5 minutes. So instead of showing it now immediately, in the next session, I'll first show the demo of MATLAB. Okay. And then what we'll do, we will solve an example of this one, classification example with respect to the application in power systems. Okay. So far, whatever we had done, if you have any questions, let's take question answers for some 2-3 minutes which are left, and then we'll close this session. And then in the next session, we'll start with the demo and the actual algorithm, nearest neighbor and k nearest neighbor. We will study the algorithm. We will actually solve a problem. So keep your pen and notebook in the next session with you so that we can solve, and we will classify manually. And see, using software is whatever you do manually is just verification. Okay, so this always should be clear. Whatever you know is just implemented. First, we should have it in our mind. How we will have it in your mind? By solving. Until and unless you read, you solve, things are not clear to you. Okay, so all those who are doing their graduation, post-graduation or PhDs, they have to compulsory solve. Those who have done PhD, they have already done it. Okay, so they will be just guiding you, but others you have to compulsory solve, and you will enjoy it in next session. Are there any question, participants? You can just type here. Some 2-3 minutes, we'll close this session, and before that we'll see the doubts.
Ma'am, there is one question appearing in questions panel. Which one algorithm is better, supervised or unsupervised?
No, that is what we saw. Na? It does not depend which is better. It depends what exactly you want from that. Okay. If you want to classify something from many options, then you will go for classifier. If you are going to do grouping, see, another thing is, if you have beforehand information of input and output, then you'll go for supervised. But if you don't have information, then you cannot go for supervised, then you have to go for clustering. Because clustering is unsupervised learning, you don't have any output information. So if you don't have output information beforehand, then you have to go for clustering only. Don't worry, still if you are not understood, in the next session, you'll understand it very properly. Yes, any other question?
There are some other questions appearing. Can we apply KNN for regression?
Regression, yes, we can apply KNN. We can apply. See, many in the figure which I had shown, see before, like neural network. Neural network was there in all places. Neural network was there in classification. I'll just go back to that figure 1 minute, so that you will understand. See, neural network is used for classification, for regression, for clustering. So it is not necessary that one algorithm can be used for one specific task. You can do any task based upon how you are programming it, how you are writing the program for that. Please suggest good book. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll suggest books in the next session. I'll just put it together and show you the slide. Okay, or any book which is used for undergraduation level that you can choose. That might be a bit simpler. Bishops is many commonly used. Bishop is the name of the author. Bishop Christopher is used many times in many syllabus. And still, if it's tough for you, then you can reach to us. And Omkar sir can arrange an FDP for that again.
Yeah, sure.
Can we use only Python? Yes, you can use Python. You can use Python. You can use any software, as I showed you the list. Python has inbuilt functions, so you can use that. If you have to write your own, right from scratch or to start, then you will require C++. So can you just read this question? Last one. Can we get this PPT?
Can we use,
you will get this PPT. PPT is already there on our website also. So not on our website, on our YouTube channel, the PPT is already there. So don't worry.
Okay.
Can we use simultaneously? Yeah. So supervised and unsupervised simultaneously means it is semi-supervised. Semi-supervised. PPT is already there, but the explanation what I have given you today is fresh explanation, not there in the previous one. And don't worry, whatever is new, everything you will get. Don't worry.
Ma'am, there is another question. What is the minimum amount of data required for machine learning?
Very good question. Very good. Actually, this is a very critical question. It depends upon your problem statement. It depends upon number of classes. Okay. It depends upon number of features extracted. Many things are there. There is a thumb rule for that. That the number of samples should be at least 10 times. Okay. What I'm saying, number of samples should be at least 10 times the number of features in each class. Okay, a thumb rule. Very important thing. What happens many times when students implement the project, what they do, face recognition is done. They will catch hold of 2-3 students through 2-3 friends, 2-3 images they will take and finish. And they will take about 200 features. That will never work. Okay, so that is very important. At least you should have 10 times the data samples in the database as the samples in each class, or as the number of features in each class. Very important thing. Yes. Any other question?
I guess no. I would like to tell participants, if there are some more questions, my mail ID is already there with all of you. You can mail me the questions. We can send it to ma'am, and probably ma'am can be in touch with us. So thanks a lot, ma'am, for your first session. We are going to meet again.
Please feedback of first session.
Pardon,
did you like this? Was it useful to you? Yeah, if you want my email ID, it is there. Yeah, my company email ID. My personal email ID is there with Omkar sir, so you can contact him also. And this is my ID. So thank you very much for being patient with me, listening to me for 1 hour. And really, you used your time very nicely, learning new things. We always remain fresh, remain young when we learn new things. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll meet in next session.
There is one instruction for participants. We are going to meet back sharp at 1 o'clock. And please understand, for all FTP, there is only one link. So don't confuse with the link. You have to join the next session by clicking on the same link.
Okay, thank
And
you.
please be attentive. Your attendance and attention is being monitored by GoToWebinar. Thank you. So let's meet at 1 o'clock again. Thank you.
Unmuted. Muted.
Should I close now, sir? Omkar sir?
You can close. No issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So end this webinar for everyone. Yes. 12:15.